Welcome back. I'm Mike Krause, editor-in-chief of CompleteColorado.com. You probably noticed that we had a little change of hosts. John Caldera actually had to go run to a How to Not Appear Desperate dating seminar at the airport Ramada. He'll be back next week. In the meantime, we're going to talk a little post-election with this man, Dick Wadhams. Dick, how are you, sir?
Mike, nice to be here.
All right. Former chair of the state Republican Party.
Yes.
All right. So you know a thing or two about Colorado politics. So it's Wednesday. We're taping this on Wednesday afternoon, day after the election.
Right.
There's still ballots being counted.
Right.
But for the most part, we know what happened on Tuesday.
Yes.
How bad was this?
In Colorado, it was very bad. Our incumbent U.S. Senator Cory Gardner, who I think was a wonderful senator, did a great job, delivered for Colorado, was there for President Trump on all the major issues, tax cuts, judicial nominations, deregulation. He was swamped by the anti-Trump vote in Colorado. And President Trump lost Colorado also, of course. Cory ran about 4 points ahead of Trump. But it went on from there, Mike. In Jefferson and Arapahoe counties, county office Republican candidates went down in flames. Now the entire Jeffco and Arapahoe boards of commissioners are Democratic. The DA in Jeffco went down. The DA in Arapahoe County at this moment we're taping is hanging on, trying to stay in it. We don't know where that'll be by the time of this airs, but it's just if you were a Republican candidate in a competitive race, you went down yesterday.
See, now we thought that 2018 was the year that being a Republican just drugged you down.
Yeah.
But apparently that was a warm-up for 2020, that you really got drugged down.
And the common thread with the two elections is of course, President Trump. And I don't want to sound like I'm an anti-Trumper, because I'm not. I mean, I really support what he has accomplished in his first term. But there is no doubt, Mike, that his behavior, his demeanor, or lack thereof, really has turned off a lot of the newly arrived voters here in Colorado. And we've had hundreds of thousands of them arrived in the last several years. They are young, they are liberal, they're registered and unaffiliated. They're not even Democrats, but they vote Democratic.
Yeah, it's fascinating that this was the year that Cory would have to be up for re-election, because he ran against John Hickenlooper, who just actually even said, I don't really want to do this. I mean, I really don't want to be a U.S. Senator. And then Cory, who is an excellent senator, by the way, and I think a lot of people don't realize quite how bipartisan he rates up there in Washington, D.C. People tie him to Donald Trump, but he also has crossed out quite a bit.
He has.
And a lot of people just don't seem to know that. And then the other problem is that some people would actually hold that against him if they did know it anyway.
They did.
But in any other year with any other sitting president, it seemed to me that Cory was at least in a position to run a fighting chance as a Republican in Colorado.
He had a narrow pathway to victory all along, and it was to find that sliver of Biden voters who would be open to voting for him for the Senate because of his bipartisan record, which Cory talked a lot about it. Well, when it came down to it, they weren't there. And talk about Hickenlooper, Mike. I mean, oh my Lord. He really, I wrote a piece for the Denver Post on this. He is the worst candidate we've seen in decades. And we, as you well know, our party, the Republican Party, has had some really bad candidates.
Bad candidates.
And but I mean, he said he didn't want the job. When he wouldn't debate his Democratic opponents, he said, well, I need my sleep. I mean, it just went on and on from there. I mean, he just is he's a horrible candidate. And yet he wins an election that he shouldn't have.
No, he should not have.
Life ain't fair.
You thought there were candidates. There were appealing, progressive candidates. I mean, this is John Hickenlooper is not a Colorado Democrats candidate.
No,
Democratic candidate.
Right.
I would say that Andrew Ronoff was much more a Colorado Democrats candidate,
or Mike Johnston.
And these were young, energetic. Guys who wanted this, and you could tell they wanted this, and they really wanted it, and it seemed like John Hickenlooper just got. Well, you wrote a piece for Complete Colorado. You just called it the anointment. He just got anointed by DC.
That's all he did.
I mean, it's just amazing. Anyway, it's done. So
it is.
It's a shame. So terrible election for Republicans. By the way, you brought up Jeffco, and I live in Jeffco. You
I
live
do.
over in Jeffco.
Yeah, I have for 40 years.
You know, never. This is new. I mean, it's been happening steadily.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe when we were coming up, there was 2 of the 3 seats were held by Democrats.
Right.
Which was that was a fairly new phenomenon, and
Yes.
that Jeffco had always been at least a purple county that leaned red
Yes.
for a long time. I worry now about, I think the last Republican elected officials we have is the sheriff, maybe the surveyor, who ran unopposed.
Surveyor. And by the way, the sheriff wouldn't be there if he had a Democratic opponent in 2018. Democrats didn't fail to put up a candidate.
So I worry about the next election
Yes.
when he's up, that it's simply going to be a straight blue county, which would be pretty new. Thank goodness. All I can say is thank goodness for the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights.
Yes.
Because it lost last year in Prop CC when they tried to undo the refund mechanism in Tabor. It lost in Jeffco by the same margin that it lost statewide.
Yes.
Which is interesting because Jeffco, by looking at the candidates and the people who sit in public office, is a blue county.
Yes.
Yet they rejected an assault on our fiscal protections. So there's this really fascinating dynamic that goes on sometimes with these people who vote Democrat candidates, but then they vote for fiscal discipline, which brings us to probably the bright spot of this election, which was the fact that even as Republicans got decimated, 2 fiscally conservative ballot measures passed.
Yes.
Proposition 116, which was put on the ballot by Independence Institute, and Proposition 117. Talk about the importance of, we were talking before we were taping that, look, Prop 116 is a small tax cut. And we, of course, want to think that that's really important because it was Independence Institute's measure. But the fact of the matter is this 117 is hugely important.
Yes.
Talk about it.
Well, I mean, I can just imagine Democratic legislators across the state watching that pass last night and saying, wait a minute.
But wait, weren't we opposing this? Weren't we opposed to this?
Yeah, this can't be. I mean, this is such a great night. How did this happen? No, I mean, it's going to stop the Democratic legislature in its tracks in terms of undermining Tabor by calling everything a fee that is really a tax and getting around the requirement to vote. No, I think that was a terribly significant victory for fiscal conservatism and Tabor-loving people like us. So, no, that was a big deal. I didn't think it would pass, to be honest. I was afraid of the language. The
language is horrible. The ballot language is horrible. They got a terrible title, and for the audience, we say that what this means now is that anytime the legislature wants to create a new fee-based enterprise that's going to bring in more than $100 million over the first 5 years, we get to vote on it, just like we vote on tax increases. So essentially, this is something Coloradans are used to.
Yes.
We have just added big state fees to kind of the voter consent that we're already used to doing here.
Yeah, well, and it's going to make the Democrats think twice before they pull that scam of trying to undermine Tabor. So it's going to be fun to watch that be enacted and in law.
Although voters did pass a big enterprise this election, Proposition 118, which is really interesting to me that voters. It's not called a tax. It's called a premium in the ballot measure, but it's a payroll tax.
Yes.
And it's interesting that voters passed a new payroll tax, and then we turned around and passed a income tax rate reduction for everybody.
Yeah, and obviously that will have a budgetary impact as well, that the family leave thing.
Sure.
Yeah, and I predict, Mike, it won't take many years once that gets enacted, that we're going to be reading about how it's sucking the budget dry, that businesses are upset, employees are upset. People had no idea when they voted for that what they're actually getting. And we'll see how that goes.
The other thing I thought that I actually thought was going to pass, I actually thought the repeal of the National Popular Vote Compact had a chance.
Yeah.
And it's not looking good. And in fact, as we sit here today, I think it's pretty much a done deal. But here's the interesting part, that it's not that the proponents of that repeal measure got an astonishing number of signatures on the ballot through a volunteer effort, through a grassroots volunteer effort, had no money whatsoever to run a campaign, and the millions flowed into this state from California, because it's California that wants this national popular vote. But it was really interesting to watch the money just roll in, and it's a shame that's such a strong grassroots effort.
Right.
And that was the most important, impressive part of this to me, because putting a repeal referendum on the ballot is no small task.
No. And that would have been a death knell for national popular vote had it been repealed.
Right.
It really would have been a serious blow, at least here in Colorado or nationally as well. I don't know why. I think the NPV repeal folks really thought that there would be money supporting them. And for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And they were essentially standing there while the other side was spending all the money.
Darn shame. Let's circle back around to Republicans, because as I was watching these results roll in, I kept looking at ballot return reports from the Secretary of State, and one of the things I noticed is that that Republicans were steadily trailing Democrats all the way up for what we call election month now, with the mail-in ballots, and then all of a sudden, come election day, come Tuesday, by the end of the day, Republicans were still trailing Democrats, but they had shrunk that, and they had a close to 90% turnout. 90% is like unheard of in elections. So what that tells me is that it's not that there's there's this moribund Republican Party in Colorado who stay at home and aren't engaged. And in fact, there was a very engaged Republican electorate that turned out big time. The problem is there's just not enough of them.
No, the Democrats going into the election had about a 106,000 voter advantage in terms of registration. Republicans closed that, and I don't know what the latest figures are, but certainly the gap in terms of turnout was not that high. So Republicans were certainly enthused and activated to support President Trump, and they turned out. But the fact is that we get engulfed now, Mike. I mean, 40% of the electorate are now unaffiliated voters, and there's many of them are new arrivals. The Colorado Sun did a great piece about how 500,000 people who voted in this election were not registered before, and they're largely young and unaffiliated and liberal. Only 19% of them were registered Republicans of that 500,000. It shows you how the electorate has totally shifted to the Democrats' favor overall.
The electorate has shifted pretty significantly, hasn't it?
It has.
So the vibe I get, and tell me if I'm wrong here, is that as things sit, that there's still an energized, there's still a Republican Party in this state, and that it was proven by this really amazing turnout. But that it appears to be almost a regional party in terms of its influence. So we know Weld County is still a stronghold. Douglas County. For the most part, El Paso County, out in the western slope, Mesa, and then parts of the eastern plain, and probably some parts of southern Colorado as well, out in the rural parts of the state.
Almost all of the eastern plains. I mean, the ski counties in the western slope are definitely not Republican.
Definitely not.
But non-ski counties pretty well. And that was kind of reflected in Lauren Boebert, I mean, winning that election in the 3rd district. So.
That was a big deal.
Yes, it really was.
It would have been.
I got to tell you.
I was nervous, and I'll tell you why I was nervous, that she did this amazing thing in ousting a 5-term incumbent. This amazing thing. That never happens. You know that doesn't happen. You wrote a whole piece.
It hadn't happened in 40 years.
It hasn't happened in 40 years. So here along comes this dynamic, young Republican woman who ousts a 5-term incumbent, and then all of a sudden look like a +5 Republican district, +8 Republican district was going to be a tough race. Right. And you think, oh no, come on, because that would have been because my understanding is that all 6 U.S. House incumbents got reelected. So nothing changed there. And all those seats appear to be pretty solidly safe now. Those guys can have those, and those gals can have those for as long as they want. Right?
And of course, the lines will change in 2022 because we're going to get an 8th congressional district after the census comes out, and so the districts will actually get somewhat smaller in terms of the number of people.
Okay.
The 3rd district will remain relatively the same. I can't imagine how they would finagle it to make it more democratic, other than there are some of those ski counties that are in the 2nd congressional district. I guess they could move them back in, but it still won't fundamentally change the dynamics. So she'll probably get reelected in 2022. But she is a very interesting person, and she's going to cut a wide swath in Washington. She just got that dynamic personality. She's young and vibrant, and she's very attractive. I mean, she gets a lot of attention, and she's fun to watch. I mean,
she's fun to watch. I'll tell you, I think that here's a problem she faces, and this is really not. This is that the what I call the Democrat media in Colorado, and eventually when she goes to D.C., the national Democrat media will never let go of the fact that she uttered the word QAnon one time. Will never let that go. And as I like to say, I mean, Lauren Boebert could stand up for a month straight every day and disavow QAnon.
Yes.
And on the first day of the next month, a reporter's going to say, Representative Boebert, have you disavowed QAnon today?
I know, and she really didn't embrace it. That comes under the heading of a new candidate who let herself say something that she shouldn't have said, but did not endorse it. And you're right. Whenever I've read a national news story, Mike, about QAnon just generally, I always think, oh no, I know I'm going to find Lauren's name in this, and a lot of time it is. Well, in Colorado, Lauren Boebert has embraced QAnon. I'm going, that is a lie. She never did.
Every article I read today about her beating Bush was very careful to mention the fact. And so, as I like to say, she should. I mean, that people are going to keep demanding she overtly disavow this, and there's nothing wrong with overtly disavowing something that's not good. It'd be like overtly disavowing Nazism or something like that. But it does her no good whatsoever to do this, because she will never.
And there will be a Washington Post style section story about the
it's coming.
The bar owner with the gun on her hip, and then
who's now in D.C.
Believe me, it's coming. It's coming. I can't wait.
It was very exciting. So a couple of bright spots in this election, at least from a Republican perspective. Lauren Boebert winning the third CD. A couple of fiscally. Some fiscal discipline by voters through the ballot, and some of these, I see some county commissions retaining their Republican majorities in a few places. But other than that,
and the state Senate, we're going to lose a net of one seat, which I think is actually a victory.
Explain that.
Because we had
that'll be a 4-seat deficit, right?
Yeah, it will go from 1916 to 2015.
2015, okay.
And Bob Rankin in northwestern Colorado looks like he's going to hold on. Kevin Priola in Adams County. Unfortunately, the Jack Tate seat, that's Suzanne Steyert, a great candidate, running for it, and she would have been a great state senator, but she got engulfed in this anti-Trump wave in Arapahoe. But Barbara Kirkmeyer in Weld won relatively easily. So it'll be a net loss of one in the Senate, which I'll take in this environment. I would take.
And what's going to happen? Do you know what's the House going to look like once all the ballots are counted?
Well, the Democratic incumbent in that southern Colorado seat that encompasses Pueblo and Otero and Fremont counties. I can't remember what her name is.
Bree Buenfello.
And she apparently she lost to the Republican candidate. Right. So that's a pickup. So that's a
pickup of one.
But there's another House seat. Which one was it that we lost?
I remember seeing that someone lost.
Who did we lose?
A seat got flipped somewhere.
Yeah, where did we lose?
So it's a wash.
Kevin Van Winkle in Douglas had a scare, but he won. And maybe we picked up. I can't remember.
Here's the funny thing: we were talking about what a great bipartisan record Cory Gardner has always had in the record that makes him a good senator because he's not the senator for the Republican Party; he's the senator for the state of Colorado. Because Kevin, we go back to this Kevin Priola seat up in Adams County, right? So it was a tough race, and Kevin came close to. He had to go out and knock on a lot of doors.
He did.
And he does knock on a lot of doors. He's a guy who works hard. But he is known as one of the more bipartisan Republicans. Works with Democrats.
He is.
Has put his name on Democratic bills. To the chagrin of Republicans on occasion.
I know.
And you would think that might buy him a little bit of good grace from the Democrats.
They
went after him hard.
They did.
And that's a tough lesson, isn't it?
Yeah. And if anybody else had been the candidate, it's not only how hard he works. The Priola family roots in that district are so deep, and there's still a lot of old Adams County families, a lot of long-term Adams County families, and that served him well as a candidate. Every time he's run, that's helped him.
But it bought him no grace.
From the party.
Not
from the Democratic cutthroats.
I've seen some Republican, some Republican consultant types who say, see, I mean,
Yeah.
people like to say all the time, they say, oh, no, it's all right. No, don't.
Yeah.
No, just come on board and
Yeah.
don't worry. We'll take care of you down the line. So
Yeah.
no, there is none of that when it comes to winning
what's
races.
interesting about the Senate race too, Mike, is that Senator Bennett really was quiet this whole time. He finally showed up at a rally.
Somebody was tweeting quite a bit under his name, but it was who
really?
reads that?
Well, that's right.
You know what I mean? That's for 20% of the.
He kind of stayed on the sidelines in terms of not really visibly supporting Hickenlooper. And I think that because I think Bennett and Gardner did work well together on Colorado-specific stuff.
I think so.
And I don't think he wanted to get out there. And remember, I think there's always been some friction between Bennett and Hickenlooper. Hickenlooper was furious when Bennett got appointed to the Senate when Salazar resigned. He thought he should have had that appointment back in 2009.
Oh, wait. So he wanted to be a senator then.
Yes,
he just doesn't want to be a senator now.
Yeah. Well, of course, yes.
he was going to get appointed.
Yes, But no, and of course Bennett is up in 2022, and
right.
So we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, Dick, tough election.
Oh my Lord, yes.
With a few little bright spots. That's about the best.
There you go.
All right. Dick Wadhams, thanks very much.
Thank
sir.
you, Mike.
Appreciate you coming by.
Nice to be here.
All right.
So.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.